Okay, so my Tuesday lesson. Wow, it could not be further from my standard. Let me show you how to do this, and then let's do it together kind of approach. So the lesson was based around feedback, and we were learning how to implement feedback that we were given to improve our outcomes. Our outcomes in this situation are our websites. The lesson started off with a quick think, pair, share about what feedback is, and we made sure to go over the importance of having respectful feedback. So we talked about how feedback is not always positive and it's not always negative, but we are always being respectful about the feedback that we give to people. And we spoke about it as a class and contributed to a brainstorm that we put on the whiteboard. The next thing I did was I warned students that everybody in the class was about to see their work, and so I gave them 15 minutes to go back and change whatever they wanted to on their website to make sure that it was ready for the rest of the class to see it. All of my students really took this on board. I think giving them a deadline was really helpful because everybody was doing something and they were completely active throughout that entire 15 minutes trying to make sure that their website was as good as it possibly could be to show off to the class. The thing that I was most concerned about this lesson was that I wasn't sure if our feedback giving and receiving was going to be organic. Now that is something that is really important to me. It needs to be something that is not led by me, it needs to be led by the students. Each student was told that they need to have 3 different pieces of feedback on 3 different websites. It was part of our success criteria for the lesson, and they took that on board really well. My students were all walking around the class by themselves, giving great feedback on the pieces of work they saw. They were playing around with the websites. They were thinking about how it could be improved. And this was all 100% organic. All of my students were engaged, and that's something I was so proud of because that wasn't my doing. That was my students having the agency and the engagement to just do it themselves. Something that I've really developed in my classroom is kind of a mana enhancing environment where people feel safe. And that was something I was really proud of in this lesson because based on the feedback that I was given back that I was able to read, my students felt safe enough to express their ideas openly with each other. And that's something that I feel is quite difficult to have with a Year 10 class, but they pulled it off spectacularly. There was a point in the lesson where I was reading the feedback and I was starting to kind of get the idea that a lot of the feedback that was coming out was very positive, which is fantastic, but it's not entirely constructive. There's nothing for someone to improve if all you're doing is giving them feedback about how amazing their website looks. So I encourage all of my students to put one more piece of feedback down on a website that was constructive, and we had a quick conversation about what constructive means. We finished up the lesson by adding that feedback, looking at it, critiquing it, and then using it to improve our websites. There was one student in the class in particular who had a number of pieces of feedback, and he did not agree with some of the feedback written on the paper. And that was okay. He recognized it, he looked at the feedback, he critiqued it, he decided that that wasn't something that he thought was an issue, and so he moved on to another piece of feedback, which is great evaluation skills. I was so impressed by that. The last thing we did was we went over the learning intentions and success criteria finally one more time, just to make sure we had done everything to be successful in that lesson.